Welcome to AmityCast. My name is Ellis.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is kind of a late May the 4th episode. We're late on an episode anyway. So
Revenge of the 5th?
Revenge of the 5th. Oh, man. But it's time to talk about Star Wars. This is going to be a controversial one because no one will ever agree on a Star Wars ranking. Anyone. At least in my experience.
Like Solo's my favorite. Do you remember what Sean said? Like Jasmine only watched Solo and she's like, what is this?
Yeah. It's like people that have never seen Star Wars and then their only experience is one of the, like, either Rogue One or Solo. It's like...
Or like episode 8.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing out on context.
Yeah, maybe. Because, it's the 8th one. But anyway, we're gonna both be giving our personal rankings of each main Star Wars film, all 11. And then we're just gonna discuss, debate a little bit. I'm excited.
Let's start out with how much of a fan are you?
I am a pretty large Star Wars fan, I'd say.
You a prequel memer?
I grew up with the original trilogy. I loved those movies. I saw the prequel trilogy after I'd grown a little bit and was not a fan. Didn't kind of turned me off of Star Wars for a while, actually. But then once the hype for Force Awakens came around, I got like heavy back into Star Wars for a while, and the new trilogy came about, and a lot of opinions were being formed, and I formed my own opinions, of course, and it was a whole thing. So yeah.
Were you into any of the shows? Like Clone Wars or like Mandalorian?
I have seen all of the Clone Wars, but I don't remember a lot of it. I do remember liking...
Even the Season 7 that came out like last year?
I didn't see that, no.
No.
But I did see the original run of the show.
Yeah.
And I did like it. I always thought it was pretty well done. I was impressed by it, so...
Yeah, we're not going to count that movie.
Yeah.
For one, it's barely a movie, and like obviously be the bottom.
Yeah.
Also, like I haven't seen it myself, like the whole thing, in years.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a very long time. I couldn't give and I don't even know how to watch that.
I should probably get you your own chair.
Eventually, yeah. We'll work towards that, though.
Go grab you like a folding chair. Or you just set a pillow down there.
Yeah. Either way, I'm excited. I know that you're a decently sized Star Wars fan, correct?
Yeah. I haven't seen all the Clone Wars. I've been like watching it, but like I'm not like up to date on it. I know what happens. And I haven't watched Rebels either, but I know what happens in that as well, because there was a lot of big things that came out of that show that like fans talked about for years. Yeah,
Rebels was like a big deal just for like the universe itself and a lot of like what happened within that. So
yeah, I really enjoyed The Mandalorian. Both of those seasons are really good.
The Mandalorian is very well done. I really enjoyed that. And
it's like the first like pretty much universally liked thing that like modern Star Wars fans have all like agreed on.
Yeah. Which is a really cool thing to see. I know that
Baby Yoda.
You ask anybody that was around back when the original Star Wars was released, and it was like a worldwide phenomenon. Like everybody knew about Star Wars. Everybody wanted to see Star Wars. It became a huge piece of pop culture like the instant it was around. So
it was a big movie. Because like before that, like the biggest one was like Jaws, which like compared to Star Wars is like really small scale.
Yeah, it really is. So
no disservice to Jaws, but yeah.
Absolutely not. Jaws is fantastic.
I know, it's kind of boring. Where's the shark?
Jaws is one of the greatest horror films ever made, but
yeah, we
can get into that at a later date. Because today is all about Star Wars. May the 13th be with you.
Yeah. It just rolls off the tongue.
It really does. But are you ready to start the ranking?
Yeah.
All right.
So we're gonna go from all 11. So we're just gonna start from the bottom.
Yep.
So
we're gonna
what's
work
your number 11?
My number 11. It should be obvious, but
episode 4.
Then I realized that it's not as obvious as it could be. But it's episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
There's actually a big Star Wars YouTuber, Star Wars Theory.
Yeah.
I remember I watched his ranking, and he actually had I think he had episode 1 higher than episode 4.
Are you serious?
For, his enjoyment, because he literally grew up with the prequels.
I guess that makes sense, but
objectively speaking, I don't think it's better.
Objectively speaking, Episode 1 is the least satisfying film to me.
I also have Episode 1 as mine, so we're just going to kind of talk about Episode 1 for a bit.
Yeah, it is the most dissatisfying film in the franchise for me, besides maybe Solo, just because I just didn't really think it needed to happen. But
Solo's its whole thing.
The thing with Phantom Menace is that it feels so useless within the story. Like, it really just... all the scenes just feel like they're all mashed up. I don't think there's any scene that I actually really like. Like, even the
Darth Maul scene.
Like, the Darth Maul scene is iconic, and like, it's cool.
And I really like Qui-Gon Jinn, like, a lot.
And Qui-Gon Jinn was pretty good. Liam Neeson, I think, was alright.
Ewan McGregor's really good as young Obi-Wan. He's much better in the next two movies, but, like, he's
that's another thing, like... the reason this one is the absolute bottom is that I just don't think they had anything clicking at all how they wanted to. And it's just all silly and weird. It's kind of like with Return of the Jedi was the silliest of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And it started to lean into that, and it seems like when we got this one, it's like, okay, this is really like leaning heavily into that like silliness. Like I know we keep using that
Jar
word,
Jar.
but yeah, like the character of Jar Jar. I mean,
it's not like I hate him, but like he's in it too much.
Yeah, I don't hate Jar Jar, but he seems way too important for a character that doesn't actually have that much relevancy to the story.
Apparently, in the original trilogy plan, I think he was, but like the gigantic backlash, he had to be cut out.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. There's not really a single thing I enjoy about Phantom Menace overall. Like, as a film, as it fits within the franchise, it's just, yeah.
My thoughts are that like as a movie, like in the franchise, it is like definitely the most like not pointless, but like it's like the one that you can definitely miss, and you won't be missing that much.
Yeah.
Besides like how they found Anakin, like why Obi-Wan's training him, seeing all the Jedi sit in chairs and do nothing. Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
But I think in the storyline, it definitely has important parts in it. Especially when it comes to Palpatine.
Yeah.
And then especially, like, I guess Plagueis was in the actual, like, pod race scene. But, like, why wouldn't you ever say that in the movies? But, like...
yeah, it's ridiculous.
We'll get to Plagueis later. That was definitely very...
I just don't think, as a return to a franchise, it was not handled very well. And
the hype for that movie was unreal.
Yeah, I know. And didn't it grossed a high amount. I think
it hit $1 billion.
I'm pretty sure it was.
But like it was re-released a few times.
Yeah.
For that 3D thing.
Yeah, and it's just like, it wasn't really a proper reintroduction. That's what I think is the worst part of Phantom Menace.
For me, I guess it has like gotten better over time, not by much, but like when I think back on when I first watched it, like I was like 12 or something when because I didn't grow up with these movies. I watched them much later.
Yeah.
I really liked the original trilogy, and then when I watched the prequels, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep like 2 times when I tried to watch episode 1. Like it gets kind of boring.
Yeah, absolutely. The exposition is really poorly handled. It doesn't look very good. Overall,
it did for the time, definitely, and it had a lot of ground-breaking effects. But like at a certain point, like there's too much.
Well, the effects, yeah. But I think overall, the cinematography is kind of weak.
It's just very bland. Especially the planet that like half the film's on. It's just like Naboo, which is just grass, and then Tatooine, which is just sand.
Even looking back, it's hard to remember parts of the film. Like I've had to watch it multiple times, and I just think that George Lucas just wasn't quite feeling it for that one.
He also just had full creative control, and like there was nobody else riding with him, being like, "Hey."
Right.
And nobody's gonna say to the guy that like made the original Star Wars trilogy that like, hey, your Star Wars movie isn't well written right now.
Yeah, no one's gonna say that to him because of how massive the original trilogy was. And
I think there was a guy that helped write him for the first 2, like Star Wars and Empire, and then he ended up leaving Return of the Jedi over like conflicts, and like that's how you can tell that movie itself is less well written, and then you can definitely tell that in the prequels.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is that I just don't think it's a good basis for a trilogy or a good film in itself. It is probably the only... That's not true. It's one of 2 Star Wars films that I am like willing to skip. Pretty much all the other ones I would definitely give another watch.
I used to be, but I definitely it's part of his vision, so I of course respect the film, and I'll never like say it's non-canon to me or anything.
Right.
I feel like once you get to Revenge of the Sith, both the previous two films do make a little bit more sense in context, but you can tell like he really just wanted to make Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
And like the other two were build up. They weren't horrible build up, but it just wasn't like as satisfying.
Yeah.
Like when you watch the original trilogy, each film is its own experience, but like the prequels just feel like a bunch of lead up to something. And then, the sequel trilogy just feels like it's all over
with
the place.
With a lot less focus on, like, the actual films being...
And then the acting itself, a lot of good actors are in this one, and some of them do give good performances. Like, I think Liam Neeson's good enough.
Yeah.
The kid that plays Anakin definitely...
Absolutely, yeah.
Is not great.
Yeah.
But the kid definitely should have been bullied as hard as he was, because, like, he, like, got into really bad drugs and... There's a lot of bad press that came about this film that really like messed up a lot of people's lives, like unnecessary bad press.
Yeah, like I said,
the actor that played Jar Jar Binks almost committed suicide.
Yeah,
because people bullied him for playing that role. Like, in the end, he was just doing his job.
Yeah, and like I said, I really do have like poor opinions of this film, but like you said, it's part of Lucas's vision, and overall, like it could have been worse. I know that a lot of Star Wars fans refuse to listen to that, but it definitely could have been worse. So,
and while it's the lowest on the list, I feel like story-wise it's definitely a lot higher than some of the Disney era films. At least like probably The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
definitely Rise of Skywalker.
100% Rise of Skywalker. That is something that we'll get into. Yeah,
I can definitely understand why this film would be like maybe towards the middle of the list for some people.
Yeah,
especially if you grew up on it. It's not like it's like there's nothing that you can... It's not like it's a movie that you watch so you just hate yourself while you're watching it.
Right, yeah. It's not that level of bad, which is like... It's just... Yeah, it's just pretty poor.
It's the most meh.
Overall, for me, I like to give ratings to every film that I watch at multiple times, of course, and I've seen this film enough. I give it like a 2, 3 out of 10.
But like, what's a 5 to you? Just like... It's okay.
A 5 is a film that's okay, and I would be willing to give it another watch in the future to give it a second chance. Like, I'm willing to give any film chances as I grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But especially if franchises, even if you give it a low rating, it's like, if you ever marathon a course, you're going to probably watch it.
Yeah, of course I would never skip this in a Star Wars marathon.
Yeah.
But as a standalone film, I probably would, because I just don't find enjoyment.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the most excited to like watch it for like 2.5 hours.
Right.
Unlike some of the other films where it's like I'm more than willing to just watch it like multiple days in a row.
Yeah. Which, all of this kind of just leads into, because I'm pretty sure we both have the same number 10, which is Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit better. It has a bit more like reason.
It does improve.
And I like Dooku.
Yeah, I do as well.
But he was kind of underutilized in both the films. I know he's much more well developed in the Clone Wars, which is another thing. Once you watch the Clone Wars, the prequels are enhanced.
Yeah,
because there's more story.
That is absolutely true.
Which is why, like, I think a lot of people are upset at the sequel trilogy right now, is that there's not like something else exploring that.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like maybe over the years the sequels will be like how the prequels are viewed now, which is like films that were treated too harshly.
Right.
Episode 2 is like, it's better, I guess. The romantic stuff's pretty doo-doo.
Yeah, it's...
last time I watched it, it wasn't as bad as I remember, but like when I first watched it, it was bad.
Yeah, my initial viewing, I was really upset with it, and I was like, this is
definitely... There's a
definitely...
little scene where Anakin's
I thought
like,
it was
I'm watching
worse
you sleeping.
I thought it was worse than Phantom Menace when I first saw it. But now, going forward, with more rewatches of both, I definitely prefer this one. But it's like, Lucas... After the release of Phantom Menace, this has been reported, like, there was so much backlash that he had to rework a lot of his script and screenplay for Attack of the Clones. Which
it's still cohesive.
Is fair, yeah. I mean,
it's
no problem. But, like, he ended up making it a lot longer than he wanted to, and it's a lot more, like you said, a lot more of a lead-in to the end of the trilogy instead of trying to be its own standalone film. And what it does try to be as a standalone film, it doesn't even do incredibly well.
It's definitely the worst middle chapter of all 3 trilogies.
Yeah, 100 by far. Actually, both of the other middle chapters I was very impressed with, and this one is just disappointing.
It's the middle chapter.
Yeah.
It's there are like some like really good scenes in it though. Like the one that comes to mind most is Anakin slaughtering those Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
Which was a good scene to actually show his dark side, and It's pretty dark.
I think that like that is the main reason I like it better, because it did do a good job of starting to really showcase Anakin's descent to the dark, because like one of the biggest draws of the prequel trilogy is seeing how Darth Vader became Darth Vader,
and how like the Empire,
how the Empire came to be, because that was such a well written part of the original trilogy, and such a well written character in Darth Vader. So it's like
that was like the biggest draw for this whole thing. That's like literally how it was advertised. The origin story.
Right, yeah. The origin story, the descent into darkness.
And the rise of Palpatine's power.
Right. Which I think, like, the more that we see that in Attack of the Clones is what makes it better for me over Phantom Menace. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to say about it, because it's meh.
I like the clones aspect. I guess it was different and it was unique. It was like the first time you watch it, it's kind of an interesting mystery, but whatever. And then this does lead into the Clone Wars show, which is probably why a lot of Clone Wars fans actually love this film.
Yeah.
And then the whole character of Padme is kind of... She's okay.
Yeah, she's fine. Yeah. I'm not a fan of Padme, personally, but...
I think Hayden Christensen is a good actor. I do think his acting in both the films that he's in are not great.
Yeah.
Which is why I am excited for him to be in Kenobi.
Yes, that is exciting.
He'll actually get another chance.
Which is really cool, I think.
Yeah. At a certain point, I really do like the story Lucas was telling, which was basically like the fall of a government. That's like the underlying plot line of these three movies, but just the execution itself was not the greatest, and this film kind of just showed that. Even the finale was just in this arena. It wasn't super exciting. The lightsaber duel was kind of it's like a lot of people praise the prequel fights and like they're good, like they're really good.
Yeah.
Like for how they were made, but like they're almost like over choreographed for me.
Yeah.
That's why I prefer like the sequel fights, honestly.
I definitely do, and we'll get into that when we get to those films, but I just think that it's...
And the original fights as well.
Yeah. It's like a lot of Star Wars is that action, that futuristic, cool science fiction action.
But there's too much.
But there can be too much, because when I'm going to a movie, I want a movie. I don't just want, lightsabers. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if there's just a lot of those battles happening, and it's just...
It's the same a lot with what people say about, like, monster movies.
Right, yeah.
It's like, I just want the monster, and it's like, well, then it'd be 20 minutes long.
Right, yeah. And it becomes too complicated, like you said, over choreographed. I definitely agree with that, because it's like
the Yoda Dooku fight. Like, I guess it's cool to see Yoda with a lightsaber, but it's like I didn't need that.
It is cool, but it's not at all necessary.
I much prefer the Yoda fight scene with Palpatine in the third film.
This film could have been a lot shorter.
By the way, spoilers.
I mean, yeah, this one could have been a lot shorter. I would definitely give it I personally would give it 3 out of 10 probably. It's not.
I never gave a rating.
What?
I don't think I gave a rating for episode 1.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it a 5.5. Because I don't think it's it's a little bit better than okay, I guess. You can tell there's a lot of passion with the story. There's no studio interference. It's his vision, his movies, which is something I have problems with the later, more recent films.
Right.
Especially the spin-off films, with firing directors and reshoots and all that. And then I'd probably give this one a 6. But I would never skip these two. They have good qualities, but they're not executed perfectly.
Yeah. Speaking of not being executed perfectly, the next one for me is Episode 9.
That's mine as well.
The Rise of Skywalker.
I enjoyed it in the theater.
We saw it together.
As an experience, it was
yeah.
It was okay.
I definitely enjoyed the experience going with friends. I thought that was fun. It was a pretty big release as the conclusion of this trilogy. And let me just say, The Last Jedi got my hopes up really high, because yeah.
My biggest thing with the ending of that film was I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. But it was a positive for me, because I felt, okay, I'm actually interested to see what direction they're gonna take. Yeah.
Once you watch episode 7, you know where that's gonna go.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I like episode 8 a lot, and we'll get into that. But
episode 9 is it's
Rise of Skywalker is just
a mess.
It really is.
It has a lot of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff, a lot of really bad stuff.
A lot of fan service.
Chewbacca's medal, I really needed to see that.
I think that's just a lot of fans liked it, at least upon initial release. So what I saw, like the popular opinion was this was the best of the sequel trilogy, and like, no, it is so.
It's like it's very middle of the road. The plot line's very rehashed. It feels like Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
Bringing Palpatine back was so. It's not like it's. I'm not against that plot line. I think it can work, but it was so not.
It could have been executed so much better.
How they ended The Last Jedi, I was very much wanting to see Kylo Ren in that position.
Right. It seems like it ruined a lot of the growth from Kylo that we got.
He's easily the best character of this whole trilogy.
He is,
yeah.
And he was so.
At least.
He was being brought up really well, and his arc was really well written, in my opinion.
And I still liked it in Rise of Skywalker, but like
I overall did like it, but it was so much less satisfying than what it could have been. And it was so confusing with so many weird like stylistic choices toward the end, like with Rey and Kylo, that happening back and forth.
Their kiss.
Well, yeah, all of that was weird to me. What did you say about I keep forgetting.
But I can like see where JJ came from, because he came back to this after Rian Johnson, and supposedly he did not follow JJ's treatments at all for Episode 8, so he didn't really have a lot to work with, which speaks a lot more to how unplanned this was and how bad of a decision that was.
Yeah,
you are handed the sequel trilogy, which is probably the biggest set of films that need to be good.
Yes,
like all around.
100%.
And, Lucas himself had plans for the sequel trilogy, and they just didn't really go with it, which a lot of fans are really unhappy about, which, I am too, partly, but I don't think they had to.
Yeah.
And I did like where, I think everybody can agree that they were at least interested in where 7 and 8 were going.
Yes.
Especially 7. Everybody was talking about that for years. And then when just Snoke died, that was, like, a big thing. And, like, sure, I would have loved to have Snoke through all 3. But I was definitely interested in what was going to happen. Almost makes me wish Ryan directed Episode 9.
I kind of feel like Rian Johnson should have just done all 3.
Yeah.
Because if he would have kept up with the quality of Last Jedi with the other ones, then it definitely, I think it would have been stronger. And then with a lot more influence from George Lucas, because it's his story, at least in the films.
Yeah, they really shunned him out. I don't know why. It was probably because of the backlash of the prequels, but it's like there's also the originals.
Which is one of the big issues with Disney, because a lot of their influence is what brought this film down. And they bailed a lot on story and went more for fan service, like I was saying.
And like, I don't know if you knew this, but originally like the Force Ghost Luke scene wasn't even going to be in the film.
Yeah.
It was a reshoot.
Right.
It's like, were you seriously about to have the last film not even have Luke in it?
Right. Like, what?
You already didn't have him in 7.
Yeah.
But that had a story reason.
Right, at least that actually had like
not to mention there was a lot of dumb story choices. There's a certain point where like there's some story choices that are made just for the sake of like keeping a character away for a while, or keeping the story fresh, even though it feels really stale once you do it. If you want to sit down, that's fine. No. Okay. But like one of them's like in Episode 8 when like they had Leia in a coma. It's just like, why? Like I was fine with it, I guess, but then in this one they have all these dumb fake out deaths. Like, oh no, Chewie's dead. Oh no, C-3PO's dead. And it's just like, oh no, Rey's dead. And it's just like, there's no consequence.
They banked on that so many times, and it just made the film feel so much more clunky.
Like, Chewie died, and then like 2 scenes later, he was alive again.
Yeah.
Like, not even to mention, there was no satisfying conclusion for Finn or Poe.
Right. Which is ridiculous, because those characters had been pretty well done through the first 2 films.
Yeah.
And I was excited to see where their arc was going.
Even Rey, I mean, she had an arc, but like it
wasn't.
wasn't.
Yeah, with Rey, it's weird because I was never like, her character was cool in Force Awakens, but then overall, I was never really that interested, even though she was supposed to be like the main. She was the main thing.
Yeah, and then the whole she's a Palpatine thing completely went against what Episode 7 and 8 were hinting at. I wasn't a big fan of the Rey no one in Episode 8 at first, but like I grew to really like it.
Yeah.
And I was very much for that. And if anything, I didn't hate the whole Rey Skywalker thing at the end.
Yeah.
Apparently that was actually planned throughout the 3 films. I don't know if that's true or not. They haven't really said a lot. I was much more of a fan of that Duel of the Fates script.
Yes.
That was actually, like, it wasn't amazing, but, like, it would have been so much better.
Right, which I don't know if you've seen that, but I'm sure you could find it if you looked it up, but, like, Duel of the Fates is what...
There's, like concept art, there's story drafts, there's a lot.
Of what the original Episode 9 was supposed to be, and I like it way better.
It was going to be by the director of Jurassic World, which, whether you hate or like that film, you can tell that he was a big fan, and he was a big fan of this, so I really would have liked to see him do this.
Right.
And the reason why they fired him, I think, was because he wanted, like, more Luke in the film. For some reason, Disney, like, really does not want Luke in their films.
Which makes no sense.
Maybe it's because he's a white male, or, like, he's a typical hero, and they want to, like, diverse and whatnot, but it's like, then don't do Star Wars.
Right.
Let's not even mention the fact that there was no big Force Ghost scene at the end. It was just voices. It's like, we didn't even see Anakin.
Yeah. There's so many missed opportunities for a film that seemed so reliant on being a finale. There were a lot of missed opportunities to make it a true Star Wars finale.
I almost wish there's another trilogy that, like, actually ends things.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like a satisfying conclusion. Like, this ends with Chewie with no friends.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how I wanted to see this end.
It's just so ridiculous. It is definitely the worst trilogy conclusion.
Out of the three, yes.
By far.
Yeah, the best structured out of the finales of the trilogies is probably Revenge of the Sith, because it was the most planned. It had the most going on.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith, I would say, is like... I'd say, like, Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi are pretty much in the same boat for me, at least.
I do kind of like that how each of their film is like, it's Revenge, Return, Rise. That's kind of cool, but, like, the title's also kind of weird for this movie. It's just, I don't know. It makes sense, but, like, I'm not a big fan of it. It was kind of funny. I kind of liked how if you, like, looked at The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, like, it almost sounded like it was forming a sentence.
Yeah.
Like The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and then just, like, The Rise of Skywalker. But, like, this movie's fine. I'm fine with watching it. I don't really watch it a lot, though.
Yeah.
I really liked Kylo in this film. I don't know why I liked him rebuilding his mask so much. Maybe it just looked cool. But, like, it wasn't really important.
Yeah, it's just...
It's almost like they were trying to make you nostalgic for Force Awakens, which is just like... He's the same character anyway.
I don't know. It's a lot of ridiculous...
There's a lot of dumb stuff where it's like, oh, this knife, but we have to figure out where the knife is. Okay, we have to figure out what it says on the knife to go where. Oh, we have to figure out how we're going to learn what it says on it. Okay, now this knife's not important.
Yeah, Episode 9 to me
They did at least give C-3PO an actual role, I guess.
Yeah, that is one thing. There's a few things that it does do right. That's why it's not, like, dead last. Visually, it is...
It's just they're so, like,
okay.
I can't get in the head of how they thought this was satisfying.
Yeah.
Or what should have been made. There was, like, reshoots of this film, and they didn't change what needed to be changed, obviously. And there's some unfortunate things that, like, they had no choice in being able to improve, like with Leia.
Yeah.
They could have recast, which I would have been fine with if it was for story reasons. But if it's not really what I think the majority wanted.
Yeah. I mean, which is understandable.
Yeah.
It's like not every decision is terrible. Not every decision was most. There was a lot of, like you said, there was some good amount of bad and a good amount of really bad. So.
And there was some that was just meh.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason they introduced, like, even more new characters in this movie. That's like, why?
Yeah.
Can you just focus on, like, the new characters you have? And then, while Palpatine was unnecessary in the film, I did like his role, like having him as this, like, almost zombie figure was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then how he just dies again is just kind of like, okay, yeah, he's totally dead this time. But yeah, I did like the one Admiral character that killed Hux.
Oh yeah.
He was at least a good actor. I think he was the villain in Logan too, which explains it. Logan's amazing, but
Logan is an incredible film.
I'm not one of the fans that's like, oh yeah, I hate this film, you know, decanonize the sequels, restart it, and it's just like, I can accept this and let it be in the universe.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I definitely accept that it's a part of the Star Wars canon, and I'm okay with that. It's just could have been handled a lot better. This film in particular is what I'm talking about, and that's really all that I really had to say about it. I initially gave it a 4 out of 10, and I think that's fair because I really just not that good.
I'd probably give it a 6, the same as Attack of the Clones. I remember one scene though that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that I really liked. I don't know why, but like that beginning vision at the beginning, the vision at the beginning, with like Rey and Kylo, and like it was like flashbacks to their past, but then, like you heard like Vader and Luke's conversation in Empire. I don't know why I like that connected to tissue like that. Is she okay? I like the connective tissue like that, and I did like seeing Vader's helmet again, even though like there was no reason. They really went back on a lot of stuff. Like you could tell that like there were scenes deliberately to just kind of poke fun at what the Last Jedi did, where it's like, oh, now Rose isn't in it all, which is like I didn't love Rose, but like if you're gonna make her a character, make her have a role, and then Luke catching the lightsaber instead of throwing it over his shoulder, which is like I know a lot of people hate that, but that was a character decision. It wasn't just to insult you. You were supposed to be upset at that.
Right.
But we'll get to that later. This is definitely the weakest of the sequels. Definitely not the one I'd go back and rewatch as much as Last Jedi or Force Awakens. Maybe Force Awakens, but I don't know.
It's a strong disappointment to me. I think Force Awakens and especially Last Jedi are pretty far ahead of it, at least for me personally. So
yeah. Well, we can move on to the next one if you'd like.
Well, the next one for me, and I think it's for you as well, is actually Solo.
Yeah. It's fine. I actually wasn't a big fan when I first saw it. I just thought, this is okay. This is really not what I wanted. This is really not what's needed. Also, I can tell why this did not do well at the box office.
In my opinion, Solo is the most meh Star Wars film because I don't think it needed to exist.
The one thing I'll give credit for is the guy that plays young Han definitely was good. He had good energy. He wasn't like the best, but like he at least made it more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I think like his performance was...
The characters honestly were fine. I liked the world. I loved seeing like the scoundrel,
Yeah.
that type of world, but it's just like I didn't really need a Han Solo origin film. A much better example of how to do this is actually The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Which is
Absolutely.
like, they have nostalgia stuff like that. Like they literally have Boba Fett in the show, but like it's still like its own thing. But
yeah, with Solo, I remember seeing it the first time and thinking, well, that
I didn't need to know how he got his last name. I just assumed that was his last name.
Yeah, I mean, that was okay, and then I rewatched it and never felt any more or less about it. I just think it's such a meh Star Wars film. I don't even...
My views on it have kind of gotten better over the time, I guess, because I was very mad about it at first, but like over the years, it's just kind of like, this is fun, but it's just like, I never have a need to rewatch this.
That's exactly how I feel about it.
We are going to disagree. Just kidding, but
we are going to disagree here soon.
There's some things it's just like I didn't need to know how he got his blaster, even though it's cool, I guess. I didn't know how he got his last name. I didn't need to know about how he got the Falcon, or met Chewie, or his girlfriend, who was a cool character. And
which, yes, it is cool to see, but it's also just unnecessary. It seems more like a cash grab than anything else.
But apparently Lucas was planning a solo film.
Really?
Yeah. Han Solo was supposed to be in Revenge of the Sith as like a 5-year-old. Thank God that didn't happen.
Thank God. That really
Yeah.
would have been cool.
Even though the Millennium Falcon actually does show up in Episode 3.
Oh.
In one like scene, like if you look really close. That's just like a blink and you'll miss it thing. I did like seeing Darth Maul again. That was basically fan service though. There hasn't been any like more explanation on like what that means or what's going to happen, because apparently Solo is going to be a trilogy of its own.
It was?
Like they're going to do a Solo 2 and Solo 3. I don't know why. I guess it was all going to lead up to just seeing him sit in the cantina. But like, I thought that's where the film was going to end.
Yeah, that's
like
what
right before Episode 4.
That's what I was expecting.
I thought we were going to see Jabba.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
Which I guess that makes a lot more sense, knowing that if they were
It was
trying
the first
to plan,
part in something.
Yeah, which...
But it would have been weird, because like if they're going to lead up with some Darth Maul Han Solo crossover thing, but then in New Hope he's like, oh, I don't believe in the Force. It's like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's just so... It looked fine. It was fine. It's fine. It didn't blow me away. It was fun as a Star Wars story, Solo, a Star Wars story. It was fun, but I didn't need to see it more than the one time. And I will watch it probably more in the future because I really am like okay with it. But like I didn't need it. I didn't really want it. It's just what it was.
The fact that we haven't gotten anything else about it, it's just like it feels even more unnecessary.
Yeah,
it's like just, at least Rogue One has that thing where it literally leads into the originals.
Yeah, which is why
we're even getting shows about those characters.
And I was a relatively big fan of Rogue One. I really liked it when I first saw it, but after rewatches, it was like okay.
It has its own problems we'll get into.
Yeah,
mainly characters, but
yeah. Just for Solo, it's just whatever.
And to be fair, these Disney films, they have really recreated that world really well.
Yeah.
Like, it looks amazing. I love all the practical stuff. But yeah.
It is definitely.
That's one thing about the prequels. It seems like the technology is way more advanced than the originals, which take place after those. Well, it's the same problem with the Alien movies, with Prometheus and Alien Covenant and whatnot. But
yeah, it's just so.
It's just these directors like, I have these effects, I might as well do it to the story that makes no sense.
Solo for me is just a 5 out of 10 middle of the pack film that just it doesn't need to be there, but it's as middling as it gets when it comes to Star Wars for me. So
I'd probably give it like a 6.5. At least it's a story that has like no stupid lines like somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then, as we move on, we'll get to number 7, which...
What's for you?
For my number 7, I have Return of the Jedi.
I have Rogue One.
Yeah. Rogue One's up next for me.
So...
I'm going to explain my Return of the Jedi stuff here. It's like...
Fuck you. I'm just kidding.
We're going to get into A New Hope and Empire later on. But those films are very good, and I'm just gonna leave it.
Return's good.
Yeah, and then Return is good, but it's another one of those things where you've got like these Ewoks, and you've got all these silly things going on, these weird elements that are just like, okay, we're at the end. We don't really need like all this weird stuff at the ending. Let's just give us a solid wrap-up conclusion.
Yeah.
And I think that the conclusion that we get is strong overall, but throughout the film, I just can't get into it.
Definitely the throne room stuff is the best.
Yeah.
From what I remember, even Vader in that film was way less intimidating.
Yeah, I know. The characters just don't seem the same. They seem the same, but without that draw that they had in the first two. Like Luke's
probably the
Luke
best
is the best character in the film because like you can see throughout his arc he grew as a man and a Jedi, and that's really impressive. I like that a lot. But the other characters, like you said, Vader, much less intimidating.
Palpatine was well done.
Palpatine was pretty good.
That's because this was mainly his first appearance.
Right. Yeah. This was like his main thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was really strong. It's just so unimpressive, really.
Especially the Tatooine thing, which I'll get into later. But like that part's like, it's enjoyable, but it's like it's 40 minutes. Yeah. And then Boba Fett was just thrown away.
Right. The main reason I have it like this low is just when it comes to rewatches of the original trilogy. I watched like episode 4, episode 5.
It's the hardest to get through.
And then I'm like, okay, I don't even want to watch Jedi. Like I have what I need from the first two, but like I want that conclusion, and I know that the conclusion's gonna be there, and I'm gonna be okay with it, so I watch it. That's why it's just mainly okay for me. Return of the Jedi is another like 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 film. It's just, yeah.
My number 7 is Rogue One. When I first saw it, I enjoyed it. It's definitely cool to see how they got the Death Star plans. I don't think it was necessary. We did not have to see that. Of course, it was for money. The one good thing that actually was they actually explained a plot hole of A New Hope, which is easily the best part of that. Besides the Vader scenes. The Vader scenes were amazing in that film. It makes me wish he was in it more, but I completely understand why he wasn't. Yeah?
Here, I got some clothes for you.
Alright, 1 second. But yeah, Rogue One, it's a solid movie. The worst part about it is probably the characters. Not that they're bad or anything, they're just really not developed, which, from what I've been told, it was kind of the point, that it was more about the mission they were on, but it's like, I can't relate to anybody here. I think the closest one that I really enjoyed is, what's his name? I don't even remember their names. It was the blind guy. The blind guy was cool.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I don't remember the characters at all.
I guess the main girl she had the most development, so she was decent. The villain of that film, Krennic.
Yeah.
I liked him at first, but like he's just not that as memorable as I hoped he would be. And then having Tarkin in the film was cool, but it was ultimately fan service, because they wanted to hear him say "fire when ready," and it's like, and not to mention the CGI. Like, while it is really impressive, it is uncanny still.
Yeah.
It just gets more uncanny. And then Vader was cool to see, and it's cool to be in that like kind of original trilogy environment. Like, it really feels like it. And I love the director, Gareth Edwards. I think he did really good with the film, even though he originally wanted to make a much darker war movie, but then Disney owns the rights, so that didn't happen. The film still works really well. It's kind of the same with Solo. Like, originally they had comedy directors. I wanted to see their version.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't work exactly in the canon.
Right.
It's the same with the DC universe. If you hire a director, let him do his job. And the fans will ultimately like it, even if they don't love it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, with the Snyder Cut. Which is its whole thing, which we've already talked about. We'll talk about it again at some point, probably. But
I'd assume so, yeah. But it's like, yeah.
It had a lot of good scenes, and I enjoy it, but it gets kind of tedious at a certain point, where it's like, I know where this is going to end. I know what's going to happen. I know all these characters have to die or disappear. And the fact that the robot's death is the one I'm most saddest at is kind of bad.
Yeah, I'm the same way. See, Rogue One is my number 6, so that's the one I was leading into. And it's like, the characters are the weakest part. I agree with you on that. I don't really remember them. I don't feel too connected to them. But the overall story, I think, was pretty strong. I definitely was invested. It looked amazing. It felt it felt good. It's just sometimes you watch a movie and it's like, I can just feel it. And it's like, just the aspects that they had in it were overall pretty strongly put together. But it does have its issues, like with character writing and development. And it does have the issue that, like, as like this leads into A New Hope, we know what's going to happen, and we know none of these characters are going to make it. So it's like, well, some of that tension kind of dies, and that kind of sucks. But like, there's not much they could really do about that. If this was the story they had to make, then there's not much they could have done about that. But
I enjoy it. I haven't watched it in a while. It was probably like a year ago. But,
yeah.
It's still solid for me. That's why it's more middle of the road. I would have definitely liked to see more of what Gareth Edwards was going to do with his original vision. He probably never will. But it's pretty solid. A lot of enjoyable parts about it. I like how it ends pretty much right where New Hope begins. So, like, you can literally watch those two back to back. It feels like one experience almost.
I think that is really cool. That's another thing that I like. There's just a bunch of little things that I like that make Rogue One a fun movie to me. One that I've definitely willing to rewatch multiple times. These are the ones that we're getting into that I actually do enjoy the watch. Yeah. Rogue One's like the first one like that for me. It's like a 6 out of 10. It's like on the good end of the spectrum for me. So.
Yeah, I'd probably give it like a 7.
It's fair.
It's fine. It's good. It doesn't have the most memorable stuff. The most memorable stuff is the stuff of characters that we've known for over 40 years. And I did like... What was one new scene I really liked? I don't know. Really, the stuff with the Death Star was like... It was really well done and really tense. Much more tense than what they did with Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens the year before. But, yeah. That's probably about it. And then you already did your number 6, right? Which was Rogue One.
Rogue One's my number 6.
Yeah, my number 6 is The Force Awakens, which I did love when I saw it, but over the years it has definitely like lost some of its like oomph about it. Especially seeing the rest of the trilogy and how disconnected it feels. It's a really good like beginning, But in the end, I think it's like almost. I'm not gonna be the one that says it's literally a rehash of A New Hope because it's not. But it has a lot of similarities that kind of bring it down because like I want to see a continuation, not a reintroduction.
Right. I don't want a rehash. I want something new.
Yeah.
And Force Awakens was a very fun experience of a film.
And I loved seeing Han Solo again. I loved Kylo Ren. I really liked Rey in that film. She was a good. I really liked Finn in that movie.
Yeah.
He had the best arc in that film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then Poe wasn't really in it as much, but he was a fun presence. Everybody acted really good in this one, especially Mark Hamill.
He sure did.
I really loved seeing that Han Solo and Kylo Ren dynamic because it was father and son, and seeing Kylo Ren like that whole bridge scene with those two that's like amazing. That's like probably like top 10 Star Wars scenes, or at least up there.
Yeah.
It was really good to see like Harrison Ford actually like give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he wanted Han Solo to die all the way back in Jedi, and there was actually plans for that to happen, but yeah, there's just a few too many things that don't work for me. Like Starkiller Base, like I get it, it makes sense that the First Order itself is a whole other thing that I have problems with because like it's never set up.
Right.
It's never explained how they rose to power and how they had the resources and money to build this. Like, I know Snoke's powerful and everything, but it's like in the end he's just pickled Palpatine.
He is pickled Palpatine. It was cool, but it never made sense.
That's why I hoped in Last Jedi I would go more detail about it.
Right.
And that's one of the few problems that I really have with Last Jedi is that Ryan didn't really follow up on a lot of the things that should have been answered by Force Awakens, and that's because Last Jedi was wrote when Force Awakens was just coming out.
Yeah. And he was very determined to make the movie that he thought that he should make. And, I mean, I do respect that, and I do like the final product, but, like, it doesn't help Force Awakens at all.
He had to remember that this was a franchise with a continuing story that he had to stick to. At some certain point. This isn't Knives Out or Looper where you can just do whatever you want. You have to stick to something here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have a Marvel movie where Batman shows up. Or where Iron Man dies, but then like Iron Man's supposed to be in the next movie.
Right.
But I'm getting that later. There was a lot of cool mystery set up in this film, which in the end I think is what one of the main things was, to set up stuff. To keep people invested. Like, what are the Knights of Ren? Why is Luke
good
hiding?
Introduction.
Yeah, and like especially that ending.
Yes.
Left people on a literal cliffhanger for 2 years.
Yeah. Which is amazing. I think it was really well shot, and it was really well done, well composed. And I'm a big fan of it. So
yeah, really good graphics as well. Really well made. Made a lot of money.
Yeah, it did.
Which I don't think anybody was surprised by.
No, absolutely not. But
Especially all the kids at school the next day. Han Solo died. Even people that didn't like Star Wars saw it.
Yeah, like everybody went to see it. It was that big a deal.
I guess it's kind of like the end game in Infinity War before that. All happened, but yeah. Right. Nothing's gonna top Endgame though, personally. Probably not.
Definitely not. We're gonna have to go in depth on that sometime because that is just.
Whew. I would have hoped Godzilla vs. Kong, but like it doesn't have that much of a reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's 11 through.
Or basically like a little over halfway.
6 for me. Yeah.
Holiday Special's number 1. The Lego Holiday Special.
No. I'm just going to go into my number 5, which is Revenge of the Sith.
Mine's his Return. So.
Yeah, which you already gave a bit of your thoughts on that, which you can talk more if you want to. But for Revenge of the Sith, I'm not going to talk too much about it because I just think...
definitely the best out of that trilogy.
It was by far the best. I think it is leagues ahead of the first two. The first two were pretty much just to set up this one, which is like... It's okay, but I definitely would have wanted more out of those. But at least Revenge of the Sith was not disappointing. My hopes were let down a lot from the first two, so I liked Revenge of the Sith a lot. You could see with like the writing and the overall production from Lucas, like Revenge of the Sith was what he wanted to make, and he really, as like his own creator, really kind of started to get it more together once he got to the third one. I still don't think that it's really that good a movie. It's like a 6 out of 10 for me. I don't know if I can give it much higher. I think it's pretty close, like, for me personally, to, like, Rogue One and Return of the Jedi. They're kind of all, like, clumped together. but I was definitely impressed by it. It was visually pretty cool. I think the performances were the best out of all the three films. I think there was a strong conclusion to all the story arcs. I liked seeing Anakin's arc. I think that his overall story, especially in this one, was amazing. Could have been better still, but I think it was really good. And that's why Revenge of the Sith is just... It's one of those movies that I honestly... I liked it a lot more when I first saw it, and the more that I watch it... If I watch it as a standalone film, it's like, okay. But like in comparison to what came before it, it was really good. Comparatively to the rest of Star Wars, it's okay. I think overall it's just a fine film, and I enjoy it.
Definitely the most dark out of those 9.
Yeah, I like the darker turn. I wish Star Wars went dark more often. Which as soon as Disney acquired Lucasfilm, I knew that wasn't gonna happen. But
it could one day, but like not for a while.
It could, but definitely not.
It's not like I need it to be rated
foreseeable
R
future.
and like a bunch of gore stuff.
Right.
I would love like let's just say we had like a Darth Vader miniseries about him hunting Jedi or something like that would be really cool.
I would love that, yeah.
Or something like that, something like Plagueis or something. But
right.
The reason why Return is well, first off, I didn't give a rating for Force Awakens. It's probably like a 7 out of 10. It's like decent. It's like pretty good. I would watch it. I'm fine with watching it multiple times. But it's not like it's not Ibsen.
Just go to your next thing. Just go to your next thing.
But I really like Return of the Jedi. Even when I first watched the original trilogy, it was definitely like the most lackluster, especially the first hour or so, where it's like, let's save Han Solo, and then let's plan this thing, and it's like it's another Death Star.
That's another thing that I didn't even say. Like the opening to the first film and the opening to Empire were both great, and then by comparison, the opening scene in Jedi is just so much more lackluster. And it was frustrating.
It's also like, you watch Empire, you're like, oh, how are they getting Han Solo back? What's this really cool story going to be about hunting Boba Fett down? And it's just kind of, just kind of unfreezing him and then escaping Jabba, which they did. It was cool. I like seeing it, but it's like, it's the finale. This feels like something that shouldn't be in the finale.
Right.
And then
it felt like there was a good amount of filler.
And then the whole second Death Star, like it made sense. Of course, they would try again. But it's like, this is not the conclusion I'm wanting.
Right.
I don't need this big end of the world thing. I just need a conclusion with the characters. And it is kind of... It's a fault on George Lucas, but it's not his fault because he didn't know how long the Star Wars thing would go. Because a Death Star feels like much more like a finale thing that you would want than, the first movie. So, but, which is, some of the sequels have problems with Episode 7 and 9 specifically. Where each one, they're just like, oh, it's... more Death Stars, more planets.
Yeah.
Isn't this scary? Aren't you scared? It's just like, no. And then Luke's obviously the best part of this film. If Luke's arc wasn't as good as it was in this film, it would be so much farther down. And then the whole twist with them actually being brother and sister, it was cool. It definitely makes the story feel a little more forced, though, when you think about it. Like, with Episode 4, it's like, so Darth Vader boards the ship that has his sister on it, doesn't know. She sends the 2 droids that have really big connections with her actual father, who is Darth Vader, and it goes to the one planet with a Luke on it, and it goes to the one family that Luke's in. And then what? But I can accept it. It's probably the Force or something like that. That's kind of the get out of jail card.
Yeah.
But and then Yoda. We don't want to talk about Yoda yet much, but Yoda's good in this one. He's not in it much.
Yeah.
But
Yoda's my favorite Star Wars character, so...
I would definitely like more of his story throughout, like his 1,000 years of living.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot there that they could go with in the future.
Which I know they have dived into in
the
Clone
whole
Wars.
universe is so expansive. There's so much that they could use for future content.
Which is the biggest really cool problem I have with what Disney's doing, because they're just staying like within this 9-film timeline. And they are starting to go out of it, but it's just like they need to like do something really unique and different. But I kind of get where they're coming from, because then they're just of course they're going to make less money than if they have Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader on the cover. Right. But I do think Star Wars one day will and probably should end, because like there's a certain point where it's just going to be like too much. Right. But it's the same with the MCU, but that's still going really strong. I'm definitely not excited for that stuff as much as I would be if it's pre-Phase 4, but like
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested.
100%.
And I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
But this film's it's good, it's decent, but like he said, compared to those first two films, it's kind of the opposite with the prequels. Because that for Revenge hits so hard because it's better than the other two, and this one hits so lackluster because the other two are just that good.
Right.
But I love Vader's turn. I love pretty much everything about that. I loved how he killed Palpatine, even though Episode 9, it doesn't like destroy that arc. It kind of weakens it a little bit because like in the end, the Emperor's gonna win again and make Luke almost want to kill his nephew, which we'll get in that whole thing how that's considered the assassination of Luke's character.
Right.
Which I understand, but I don't really agree with. But we'll get there. I also love his lightsaber. I love seeing him like physically create. There's a lot of really good symbolism in this one.
Yes, there is.
And I know in the original like concept for the other scriptwriter, before he left, he actually wanted the film to end with Luke turning to the dark side.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's cool and all, but it's like, it's just not what I really wanted. I watched his character over 2 films, and then this film just all of a sudden have him turn evil at the end. Not only would it be a massive cliffhanger, but it's just like I don't necessarily want to see that, because Luke's the everyman, you're supposed to relate to him the most, so I don't really want to see him do that, which is another reason why I think a lot of fans were very much against what was done with him in the sequels, specifically The Last Jedi. But in the end, he's a human character, and he's really human in this one, and you can tell like how much physical pain and emotional pain he's in. And it's a really good final confrontation that really wraps up the whole franchise.
Yeah.
But of course would be explored more. It was always known that Lucas had a plan for like 9, even up to 12 films.
Right.
And while he did get to do the prequels, we never saw what he wanted to do with those possibly other 2 trilogies.
Yeah.
So.
Which is an upsetting thing. But
yeah, I'd probably give this one like a 7.5. I'm fine rewatching it. It's a classic. There's so many classic shots from this. There's really good acting all around. Palpatine's great in this one. Not his best performance. I'd probably give it Episode 3 just because of how hammy and campy it gets, and how much he just enjoys being evil, like genuinely.
Yeah.
But this is definitely his most intimidating. But yeah.
All right. And that's your number 5? Well, moving into number 4. My number 4 is Force Awakens. Because, well, basically, a lot of what you said about Force Awakens, I'm probably not going to spend too much time because I agree with a lot of what you said.
Go bite.
But overall, I think it was a fun, positive, and good introduction. I think beginning to end, there's not much that really dissatisfied me. There were problems with it. Not every character I don't think was handled the best.
Let's not even get to how bad Hux's character was treated. Like, he was set up to be an actual good villain in this, and then like each film failed.
Complete disappointment, which is a problem.
And the actor's amazing too. So it's just like,
I know. That's the most frustrating thing. But I just remember when I went to see Force Awakens in the theater, and it was it was an incredible experience. And I think that visually, it was very well done. I think that the overall concept and how it was written, like all the way through, is definitely a lot stronger than I expected. Like when I would rewatch it, it was a lot better than I expected.
Okay.
And it's just like, I really do love. I love parts of this movie, but not all of it. That's what's tough about a Star Wars ranking for me is that though I do love the series as a whole, it's hard for me to find like any of the individual films that I love except for like my top 3. And like that, Force Awakens is outside of that because like I do enjoy it, and there are parts of it that I really enjoy. But overall, I just don't think it's just definitely not the strongest effort. I think the people who hate on it give it way too much hate, and the people who like it, I think they definitely sometimes can like over love it. But it's a bit more,
especially when like you look back on reviews from like when it first came out.
Yeah.
Like people were giving it like the best film of the year.
Right, which is definitely not at all true for 2015. There were a lot of better films that year, and just
Maybe the best experience.
yeah, probably the best
Visual.
experience. Like, and that's the main thing. Like, it does well what you want Star Wars to do well. That's why I have it so high. Is that visually it looks great. They did a pretty good job of adhering to the justice of the franchise by trying to reintroduce this trilogy, and that's why I have it at number 4. So it's like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. My number 4 is Episode 3.
Yeah.
Which, the best of that trilogy. Really solid acting, especially from Ewan and Hayden, especially in their final duel. Definitely is probably the most emotional duel because of, like, they're basically, like,
Absolutely.
brother and brother. And I really love that Mustafar setting really well. You know, it ends exactly how you think it's going to end. Because, like, you've seen the originals. You know, like, oh, yeah, Luke and Leia get separated. Something's going to happen to the mom. You know, she died from heartbreak. She just can't live anymore with your 3,000 advanced medical equipment.
Yeah.
There's some really good scenes in that one, like how, like, at the end we shift from, like, Darth Vader being birthed and Padme's death. There's, like, really good reverse in there. You can tell that, like, this had the most effort put behind it, especially that opening, like, fight scenes with the ships. It was definitely well done.
Yeah.
Really well shot, and the FX actually genuinely looked good there.
Right, I agree with that.
Like, especially, like, the flying shots actually look like they could pass for nowadays. Mostly.
Yeah,
But,
for the most part. Like, especially for the era, it was really good.
And let's not even mention how, like, OP R2's in this series. Just this trilogy specifically.
Yeah.
I didn't even fly it until, like, episode 2.
Which is
It's like, couldn't even use that.
It's pretty ridiculous. I don't know. The characters are always supposed to be outlandish. Sometimes they go a little overboard in Star Wars films, but it's a part of the gimmick. I like it.
Yeah. And then seeing the Order 66 was really well done. Really well handled. Even though a lot of the Jedi that died at the time, we didn't really know enough about to actually care. Now, through, like, other, you know, comics, books, you know, Clone Wars, you have a lot more connection to that. But even then, it's really well executed, especially that youngling scene. Really dark, really cool. Apparently, there's an extended scene of that, kind of. Of Anakin killing Jedi.
Yeah.
But, like, it was cut out because, like, it would have given it an R rating. Which is, like, I kind of want to see it now. But, like...
Right.
Had a lot of good stuff in it. Definitely the best, like, Obi-Wan, you know, character in this film. Because in episode 4, he's just kind of a mentor.
Yeah.
In 5 and 6, he's just a Force Ghost. And it's just like, okay. And then, even though that'll probably be beat by the actual Kenobi show.
Right.
Which I'm very excited for, because this is going to be, like, a direct continuation of this events.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, really well done, well shot. You can tell the script's the strongest. There's not, like, a bunch of weird, cringy, romantic dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few, I guess, but, like, it's
There's
not,
some,
like,
but
a whole subplot.
It's not like an actual... It was an issue.
Where, like, Yoda's like,
Attack
hey,
of the
go
Clones.
protect this girl. You're like, okay, don't do anything fishy. And she's, like, dressing, like, very skimpy, and is like, I can't be in love with you.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, Alec. But, like, I'm generally not against rewatching this film, like, ever. Very similar to you of The Force Awakens. It's very watchable. So I probably, what did I give The Force Awakens, like a 7?
Yeah, you said like 7.
Returning it like a 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably give this a 7.5 as well. But my number 3 is The Last Jedi, which is definitely going to be the biggest one to talk about here. What's your number 3?
The Last Jedi as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I originally had it at number 2, but I thought about it more, and it's just within the Star Wars universe, it just doesn't connect well enough for me to rank it that high. But as a film, I think that it's marvelous. I really do.
It's definitely the most beautiful.
Yeah.
The cinematography is on
It is
point.
visually outstanding to me.
Especially that throne room battle was really good. Even though a lot of people complain about it, though, because, like, there's slight inconsistencies in cuts, and it's like, have you seen any fight scene in any Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
It's not going to look great. There's going to be mistakes. as long as the general framework of it still works, it's fine.
It's the problem with any filming of choreography. It's not always going to be.
It's not going to be perfect.
Right.
Like, in fact, it was like this one-shot type thing, really well done.
Yeah.
The subverting expectations thing, I think at a certain point he was just doing it to do it, not necessarily to think about, oh yeah, there's another movie. This almost feels like a conclusion.
Yeah, it does.
When I saw this with my mom,
feels like a standalone film.
When I saw it with my mom, she's like, is there going to be another one? Like, it feels like an ending almost.
It's a strong standalone film. And, like, what holds it back, not just for me, but especially for other people, is how much, like, disconnect it feels from Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. And
even the first 6.
And even any other Star Wars film, really, yeah. It doesn't really fit that well in the Star Wars context, but the film itself, I just think it's masterfully written.
There's problems with it, of course. Like,
the
Canto Bight stuff I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
But, like, anything of Kylo Ren and Luke it's amazing.
Kylo Ren is one of the best written characters, in this movie specifically, is one of the best written characters in, like, the whole franchise.
In, like, blockbusters, kind of.
Yeah.
You really relate with him.
Right. He's extremely relatable, and, like, you understand, like, his motivations, and you start to learn about, like, any traumas or issues that he has, which...
And another good thing in this film is that, in this whole trilogy, like, from the beginning, like, no matter what they would have done with the sequel trilogy villain, it would have been compared to Darth Vader, so it was really smart on their part to make him a very confused... You know, he has tantrums, he's very unstable.
Right.
And he's literally trying to be like Darth Vader.
Right, and he feels real, and that's the best part about it. With Star Wars, is always like this fantasy that's crazy, but if the character...
It's essentially a family drama.
Yeah. When the characters are written in a way that you can relate to, in a world where there's, like, lightsabers and you're flying around in space, like, that is incredible.
Space Nazis. Hux, though, was absolutely horrible in this film.
Yeah.
The jokes, the
worst part about the film itself.
The comedy did not work for me. Some of it did when I first watched it, and some of it still does, but, like, I don't need your mama jokes in Star Wars in the first 10 minutes.
Right.
That opening scene with the Star Destroyers was really well done.
Right.
But, like, it's just some of the character stuff didn't work for me. And Leia felt extremely underused in this film for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, and Luke's easily my favorite character in this film. It's definitely Mark Hamill's best acted.
Oh, yeah. Incredible acting, and honestly, a much better arc than given credit for. A lot of people, like, hate on, like, Luke's arc in the film.
Even Mark Hamill did at first.
Yeah.
I don't know what his thoughts are now, but, like, as far as I know, he's more for it now because he's actually seen the film.
Right, yeah. And if you actually, like, watch how the film goes along, I think it's an actual good, proper conclusion for the character of Luke. I don't know how well it fits.
I think a lot of fans were upset because it didn't fit, like, how they saw him at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
As this character that's for good, who saw the good in his father.
Right.
Which I do agree with. Like, it was kind of weird how he just saw a slight bad in Kylo, and then he just immediately, like, thinks about murdering him. But
Right.
with Vader, he's like, oh, he has to turn.
Right.
But it's also been 30 years. And it's also situations, like,
right.
Even if you knew, let's just say hypothetically, if you knew Hitler, but if you saw a baby that has the possible future of being Hitler, wouldn't you feel like you're obligated to stop that right there?
Right. That's,
like, just a dilemma in general that really is, like, hard for people to decide.
But I think it harkens a lot to Luke's character as developed throughout the films.
Yeah.
It feels a lot it feels a lot like who Luke is, and
by the end of the film, this whole arc was for him to become what people saw him as.
Right.
And by the end of the film, even though, like, he wasn't actually there,
right,
he still did it.
It actually makes more sense from a real world perspective, which is what Johnson was going for.
It's definitely probably one of my favorite duels, even though it's not really a duel.
No, not.
It's funny because Luke actually isn't there.
Yeah.
Kylo's literally fighting himself.
Right, and that is incredible symbolism. I was gonna get into that because that's really amazing how that was written up, and just everything from beginning to end as an open and shut story.
That whole Luke and Leia scene was amazing.
It was incredible.
That little Winky does a 3PO. That R2 scene.
Oh yeah. The composition was
how
great.
He reacts to Han's death. It was.
The score was really good, and like we said, the visuals were just outstanding.
We didn't talk about that in Rise of Skywalker. That Han Solo scene, that was probably the best in that film.
Yeah, it was.
Really well done.
It definitely was.
That was also Kylo Ren. It was basically confronting himself.
Right, yeah, and that was one of the few things actually in that film that I would like give a lot of praise to.
Yeah.
For me personally. But The Last Jedi, I remember watching it, and I was just blown away. Not, like, as a Star Wars film, but how great of a film it was. Like, I didn't expect that after Force Awakens. I expected more, like, oh, okay, maybe some
A lot of
cool
people were
Star
expecting it
Wars
to be,
stuff.
like, Empire.
Right.
Again, which in ways it was, but, like...
In some ways, it was a lot of people were saying it's completely, like, unlike Star Wars. But, like, in some ways, it is very similar to Empire.
Yeah.
I think who talked about it best was probably I Hate Everything. I think his, like, video on it.
I don't know what his thoughts are now, but, like...
Right, yeah. But at least at the time, the way he summed it up, I, like, fully agreed with. At least for the most part, is what I mean. But...
It was different. It wasn't the same.
Yeah.
It still was Star Wars. I don't think... There's some things that I get why fans are upset, like the whole Lightspeed scene. And that whole Holdo character I didn't really love either.
Yeah.
But in the end, as a movie, it was a really solid experience. And I'm not really against watching it again. There was one time where I actually fell asleep watching it, which was making me think it was on Phantom Menace level, but it is not.
No.
At all.
I
even really liked what they did with Rey in the film.
Yeah, I actually think I like Rey the best in this film out of
Yeah.
the three. I think that...
Also, there's speaking of symbolism, that whole breaking the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Really good symbolism. And then in 9, they just tape it back together. But,
Right. And then one quick thing, because I think we should probably move on soon, but one thing that I think is cool, I'm a defender of the character of Rose. I know a lot of people
she had a fine arc.
hate what Rose was, but, like, the way I view it is that Rose is a great example of what it kind of seems like symbolism for a Star Wars fan. Because Star Wars has always been a story about, Luke Skywalker was just some guy from, like, a desert planet, but he found out that he was special and he was able to make a difference. And then Rose is just some mechanic that shows up in the movie, but she makes a significant difference, and I felt for the character because I kind of related to her as a fan of the films. Rose kind of felt like an amazing homage to what it is to be like to actually view Star Wars and pick up the message from it within the film, and I liked that a lot. I know a lot of people, most people don't view it that way, but that's how at least I view it.
I can see it. I remember Ryan Johnson himself said that Rose was a character he put in deliberately because it feels like a character that shouldn't be there.
Right, yeah.
It was like what he would imagine one of his friends being in the film that wasn't actually really a Star Wars character.
Right.
And he knew what he was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that because it was intended, I think it was done pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't really love the line that she had. I agree with the line, but like it was just when she stopped Finn. Into the whole we're fighting to say what we love, not what we hate, and it's just like, to be fair, he was trying to stop something that would stop the murder of all your friends.
Right.
But
That's kind of in context. It didn't work as well.
Yeah. But and then the ending of the film. While I didn't necessarily agree with Luke's death, I would have much rather him have died in 9. It did feel like a place where he could have ended, where he would have been at peace, and I'm fine with it.
Right.
One thing they should have done though that I think would have been well is that. I remember some fans complained, nitpicked, they're like, why did his metal arm go into the Force? Maybe it would have been a cool, just an image to see, when he went to the Force, you just saw, his metal hand, fall to the ground. Or something like that. Also, his green lightsaber, what happened to that?
Yeah.
They barely even talk about it. It's in 2 scenes. One of them is him attempting to murder his nephew, and another one is a random training montage.
Yeah.
Which was cool. It was cool seeing that Leia was actually trained.
Yeah, that was definitely... I liked that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I just, overall, I do... I like pretty much everything about The Last Jedi within the film itself. Maybe not how it connects outside of it.
Yeah, I even liked how they got rid of Snoke. It was a really good, it wasn't like symbolism, but it was kind of like talking to the audience, being like, no, we're not just going to do Palpatine again.
Right.
And then what do they do in the next movie?
Yeah.
Palpatine again.
Yeah, but we already talked about Skywalker because that one wasn't...
I know Ron Johnson apparently enjoyed Rise of Skywalker, but if I was him, I would definitely feel somewhat insulted with some of the stuff they did.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's not his company.
Right.
He's doing Knives Out sequels and shit.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Knives Out, but I heard it's really good.
It is a very good movie, actually.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I'm going to have to give Last Jedi, an 8 out of 10. I think it's fantastic. And then for me, 8 through 10 is, fantastic film territory. So,
It's really hard to get a 10.
And I think we can probably talk about the next 2 together.
Well, I have A New Hope and then Empire.
And I have Empire, then A New Hope.
But, it's really close.
It's almost interchangeable, I'd say. I think any of the, I'd say it's almost interchangeable when I really look at the broad scheme of things. I will just say, I think Empire is an incredible film. The story from beginning to end is so well done. It looks incredible, like we've been saying. The composition is fantastic. The music, great. Luke's character, great. Darth Vader's character, great.
Talking about Empire, right?
Empire, yeah.
Yoda was great too.
Yoda
Some
was
of them lines are just
fantastic.
That will stick with you.
And so iconic and just so amazing.
whole
It
X-Wing
is
scene.
widely accepted as one of the greatest films ever made, and understandably so.
It's definitely on the list.
Absolutely. But the reason that I've always had A New Hope over Empire is because I think Open and Shut, I've always preferred the story because it's like the first one, it really felt more passionate from Lucas.
It did. Well, Empire wasn't even directed by Lucas.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird when you first find out about it because you always thought it was George Lucas's thing.
Right.
But, Empire and Return weren't even directed by him.
Right.
He was heavily involved with it.
Yeah.
And it was his story still, but, he wasn't behind the camera all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of amazing scenes, like the whole Hoth. Amazing.
Fantastic.
And actually, like, the environment itself, when you watch it, almost makes you feel cold, which is really weird. It's really hard to accomplish that.
Right.
Darth Vader is easily the best in this film. One of the best villain portrayals ever. Like how he just force shows people across like starships, amazing. The whole reveal at the end, amazing.
Yes.
And every single trilogy's kind of tried to have that type of revelation. Fucking Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker did it twice with the same character over who her parents are.
Right.
And then it was just like, actually, this is where your grandparents were.
Yeah. And what it really comes down to is I think pretty much any Star Wars list, these two are the top two.
Empire was so good. No other Star Wars film has been able to top the type of character and story that it has done.
Right. Like, it's almost to a visceral level because of how much joy you can find in the fantasy and the fun. You can just revel in the joy that you can get from watching. For me, more so the original, A New Hope.
I love A New Hope so much because it doesn't really feel like a franchise thing. The one thing that will always disappoint me about the film is the lightsaber battle in that film. It is not good.
Yeah.
There's actually seen like a reimagining of it. It's so much better. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not seen it.
Maybe I'll have to watch it. It's really good.
Yeah.
I really loved Luke. He was whiny in A New Hope, but that was his character.
Right.
He was the everyman.
It was a great start to that arc.
And the fact that the first 15 minutes are told from Joy's perspective just speaks on how good the storytelling is, that you're invested.
Yeah. The overall story and the way that it's told is my absolute favorite in A New Hope. And I think in Empire it's also fantastic.
Yeah. This doesn't hit as hard.
Right.
Like, we didn't even talk about that Lando's in that movie, and Lando's easily he's top tier.
Lando was an incredible character.
He's just in episode 9.
For a character that's not there that much, I still feel like there's a full arc and a great character development within that character. And that's what makes the first two Star Wars films so fantastic for me.
The fact that they were basically able to top the first film.
Yeah.
First off, is not at the time, I don't think that was ever really seen.
No.
Because, what else did they really have to compare it to? Jaws 1 and 2?
Yeah, I can't remember when, I'd have to look up dates exactly.
What movie?
The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2.
I think that might have been after Empire.
Actually, the first one was 72 and the second one was 74.
Okay, so there is that too.
But other than that, I don't think there's any other true example of a sequel that was as good at that point was as good or even better, which can definitely be viewed as better. I prefer A New Hope, but they're both.
I can just pop them in and watch them.
Yeah.
Or watch them on TV, and I would not not enjoy it.
It's broad.
Every single person should at least watch those two films.
Yes.
And of course, if you watch those two films, of course you're gonna watch Return. So.
Yeah, it's that whole trilogy is extremely iconic.
As its whole one thing, it's amazing. Each individual film has its own flaws and weaknesses, which is the greatest thing about a trilogy, but also the downside.
Yeah.
Because you really need to see the whole picture.
Right.
Which is something like with DC is why they did so bad with the Snyderverse, because they never let it be finished.
Yeah.
You left it unfinished.
Right.
So you're looking at an unfinished canvas, which for George Lucas is basically what happened with his sequels. But his first 6 still work.
Yeah, they do work as...
A sequel trilogy was never really needed.
It wasn't needed, no.
If I was going to be a hardcore Star Wars fan, I would just be all I need is the originals. I don't need to know every single thing that happened before or after. I just need those 3.
And
even those two, really.
And not just because of what they were, because they're that good. It was so original, especially for the time. Just the originality and the overall just incredible, like we said, storytelling, the visual aspects, which were really inventive for the time, revolutionary, yeah.
Really reminds me of the hit Despicable Me trilogy and all it.
The Despicable Me trilogy. I mean,
I haven't seen the third
as
one.
I like to call it, the DMCU, the Despicable Me Cinematic Universe. It is just, it's very immersive. But back to Star Wars.
No, I will be super villain.
I will be super violent.
Also, Palpatine was introduced in episode 5.
Palpatine and Darth Vader are two of the best movie villains.
And this is where it really came from.
And
Darth Vader wasn't amazing in A New Hope. I think he only had 9 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, which is weird. He feels like a lot bigger part of the film, but then he wasn't that big until Empire, which is why Empire I could see being above A New Hope, because Darth Vader as a character is one of the most compelling pieces. He's one of the best written. He might be the best written villain, as a definitive villain in film history, which is a big deal.
But Jigsaw Apprentices, though.
It's a little hint as to next week's episode.
I'm trying to think about that one. That was in 5 and 6. Hoffman,
the Hoffmanator in 3D.
I think isn't he the worst one?
I cannot wait to talk about Saw. That's gonna be fun.
I watched that clip of Dead Man giving his own subtitles to each sequel because they're just all Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 4.
Yeah, because he gave his own subtitle to each one, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's much more to say.
There isn't much more to say. I mean, those two original
I'm definitely
films,
excited for whatever comes next.
Yeah.
The movie-wise,
the Star Wars universe is fun, and it looks like they're going to continue with it, which I'm fine with. I
don't need it to, but I'm
honestly,
interested.
for me personally, just the first 2 films, I'm fine with. And then, Last Jedi, if it was, its own, standalone property, those would be the 3 movies that I adore all 3 of them. I think that they're fantastic. I give both of those 2 originals probably 9 out of 10 each.
Yeah.
It's really hard for a movie to get 10 out of 10 for me. It's tough for that, but that's a
show.
That's a show. Yes, 100%.
Halloween. Original.
The original Halloween's probably a 10 out of 10 for me. I'd probably say, honestly, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a 10 out of 10 for me.
Infinity War is probably a 9.
Definitely, a 9. Infinity War is fantastic. Endgame is as a spectacle, a 10. As a movie, 8, 9, probably.
Yeah, we'll get into that later, but
yeah.
Even the original Alien, maybe a 9.
Oh, yeah, I love that movie so much.
Even Aliens, maybe.
Yeah, Aliens is a step down, but it's its own thing.
It's just because of my preference.
Right, yeah. Yeah. I think it's a step down personally, but it's its own thing, and I think it does it well as a completely it added in another genre, and it does it well, which is why I love that movie so much. But I digress because this was the Star Wars episode.
Star Trek.
Spock's my favorite character. Yoga's fantastic. I love yogurt.
Darth Refrigerator.
We didn't even talk about the best Star Wars movie, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs is just OP.
I love Spaceballs. It's so funny.
It's so fun.
I haven't seen that movie in a while. I gotta watch that again. But anyways,
I'm trying to think of the line.
Which one?
You went over my helmet?
You went over my helmet?
And the guy that's cross-eyed, he's like, who is aiming this?
That's me, sir. May the Schwartz be with you.
The whole watching on the TV thing was they're watching the movie while it's being filmed.
Yeah. Trying to figure out where the characters are.
Spade.
Go! May the Schwartz be with you.
The search for more money.
Man, I know that what's his name?
Brooks.
Mel Brooks, he really tried to get the sequel done a few years ago, but no one was able to help him out with it.
Sucks. He's 80 though. So.
Yeah, he's really old. That's why that's why he probably isn't gonna happen now because he's too old. But he was really trying about 5 years ago.
They'll probably try to remake it at some point, which is no.
Yeah, it's upsetting, but yeah, Star Wars Episode 4 is my number 1, and then
basically interchangeable between the first 2.
Yeah, 4 and 5 are interchangeable pretty much. I think we mostly agree.
Yeah.
I don't think there was too much debate. I think overall, the Star Wars franchise is very fun. It's probably the most iconic, large franchise in film history. Some of the films are overrated. Some of the films are underrated. Overall,
some are just kind of meh.
Yeah.
But that's
It's
about
kinda
it.
okay.
It's pretty delayed because of last week. We weren't able to film, and then yesterday we had some complications, but it's here now.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back next week with Spiral.
Yeah, next week we're going to talk about Spiral and some of the Saw franchise, because I'm definitely excited about that.
Looks like it could be really good, but
I really hope Spiral is good for a Saw movie, even though doesn't mean it's going to be a good film, but it's exciting.
the biggest thing is how much passion's involved. So
That is the most important thing with really any film, especially like franchise based. So,
yeah.
but I'm excited. So, do you have any closing thoughts? Legumes.
But yeah, that's probably about it. I don't know. Do you have any adding thoughts?
No. Okay. All right. Well, these have been our opinions on AmityCast. We'll see you next time.
Adios.